So you just got feedback on your manuscript, maybe from a beta reader or a critique group. And someone said this: it drags. Or worse, I put the book down and I never picked it back up again. Ugh, that one stings. Instantly, your brain goes to the worst case scenario when you're trying to figure out how you're going to fix this thing. You think, oh, I'm going to have to cut characters, I'm going to have to replot, I am going to have to start this thing over from scratch. But what if you don't have to? What if your problem isn't a content problem at all? What if it's a structural problem? What if you could fix this thing by simply revising your chapter breaks? I'm not kidding. Chapter breaks. I'm Holly Schindler, an award-winning author as well as freelance editor, writing coach, and writing instructor. And today I'm going to show you a bit about the power of chapter breaks, especially during revision. I'm going to introduce you to something I call the Splinter Method of Revision, and I'm going to show you 3 examples of chapter break issues that can, in fact, make a reader put a book down. All right, so what is the Splinter Method? I like to approach revision almost like a doctor would approach, diagnosing something that's going on with a patient, walks in the office, got an infected foot. Okay, now when this doctor looks at this patient, he doesn't immediately jump to amputation, right? He doesn't say, we have got to cut this foot off. He says, let's look for the root of the infection. Let's look for the splinter first. That's what I want you to do when you're approaching your revision. Before you jump straight into replotting a novel and restructuring your character arcs, I want you to look first for the splinter. And yes, chapter breaks can absolutely be a splinter. I know most authors view chapter breaks as just kind of a convenient place to take a breath, but really chapter breaks are absolutely one of the most powerful revision tools you have. Chapter breaks can help control the flow of information. They can control your pacing. They can help build tension. Do not underestimate the power of your chapter breaks. Okay, now this all starts with sort of mining your beta reader for some information. If your beta reader just said, oh, there were places it drags, you really want them to tell you exactly where in the manuscript that happened. And this can be something you actually hit a beta reader up with before you actually shoot them in the manuscript. You could say, I really am interested with this particular book in the pacing and whether or not anything drags here. And I want you to just mark it as you're reading. This is getting really slow here. I don't see where this is going. I don't know why you're doing this here. It's dragging. The other thing you can do is absolutely check in with a beta reader who has had a book for a while and hasn't gotten back to you. Something's going on there. And it may just be that something has happened in their life and they're busy. But it may be that they have put this book down and they're having a hard time getting back to it. So just poke them a little bit and say, hey, how's it going? If there's something going on with it and if it's dragging or you've stopped reading, I really just want to know where. The whole point of having a beta reader isn't to force them to power through it and read every word in this book and then give you, a glowing review at the end. That's not the point. The point of having a beta reader is for them to tell you honestly where things are going wrong in this manuscript. So if they have in fact put this manuscript down, you need to know that, and you need to know where. So just find out from your beta reader, first of all, where in this manuscript did it drag, or did you stop reading completely? Okay, and this is the kicker here. Do not touch the content yet. I know it's tempting. Do not touch the content. Now that you know exactly where your manuscript drags or where a beta reader stopped reading, I want you to ask yourself these 3 questions. The first question is there any variation in how these chapters end? You really want to examine, say, like 3 or 4 chapters surrounding or preceding this area where your beta reader said they were really having problems. Lack of variation in chapter break type can absolutely begin to make your manuscript feel one note. And it can even happen with cliffhangers. Cliffhangers are funny. I always feel like it's a little like kind of the feeling of driving on the highway. You can get really numb to the feeling of driving 70 miles an hour. Where you begin to feel it is, say, like when you have to get on an off ramp and then, slow down a little bit and then get back on the highway. Then getting back up to 70 miles an hour, you can begin to feel the speed a little again there too. So even in a book that is fast-paced overall, or it's an adventure book, you do need to have chapter breaks that are a little quieter and are not cliffhangers, just so that your reader can get that on-ramp feeling again. Question number 2, does anything feel unresolved at the end of these chapters? One trap you can fall into is tidying everything up at the end of a chapter. You can either have constant cliffhangers or constant kind of, neat and tidy scene endings. You don't want that in a novel until the very end, right? You want something left dangling. And again, it doesn't have to be a really dramatic cliffhanger, just some story question that is introduced there right at the very end that will propel your reader forward. I mean, if you don't have any unresolved issues right now, it is going to kill the tension and it's going to keep your reader from pushing forward in that instance. And question number 3, what is the first sentence of each next chapter doing? That's part of a chapter break issue. It's not just the final sentence of one chapter, it's also the first sentence of the next. So what you're looking at is, does that next chapter immediately start off with the same kind of energy and the same story thread as you introduced in the preceding chapter? If your subsequent chapters always pick up in a different time, in a different location, pick up with a different story thread, that is going to really land with a thud with your reader. Their momentum is killed in that instance. If your reader has to reorient themselves at the beginning of a new chapter, that makes that new chapter a really easy place to put the book down. You want your transitions from one chapter to another to be absolutely seamless. So the good news is you can spend 10 minutes doing this and absolutely realize you don't have a content problem at all. You have a pacing problem that's just structural. That's your splinter. Fix your chapter breaks. And now you've avoided amputation. Now, what I've just walked you through is an absolute starting point. Chapter breaks go much deeper than this. Chapter breaks can help you control the flow of information, build tension across multiple chapters, even help you handle the hard stuff like death and violence. Chapter breaks can also help you control pacing in the way that's actually grounded in the psychology of how readers process what they read. I've actually built an entire course around this, the psychology of chapter breaks, where I teach not just what to do, but why it works. Because the thing is, once you understand how a reader's mind works, you stop following rules just because someone told you to, and you start making choices about your own manuscript with real intention. Got the link below. I'll catch you in the next video. In the meantime, go write something.